What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and I'm back. Took a little hiatus because Dragon Con last weekend, and pretty fun. First Dragon Con I ever got to go to. Me and my girlfriend cosplayed quite a lot. It was exhausting. I'm still tired, still not fully recovered. But yeah, I didn't really have time to review anything. Didn't even really get to review any Chelsea games or anything like that. But with that being said, there's one show that I could have been reviewing before all of this madness, and I haven't yet. And I think part of that is down to I'm watching What If, and as I'm watching, I'm thinking I don't know if there's really enough for me to do a full review on any one episode. And so now that we're 5 episodes in, and I'm pretty sure that this is like halfway through this first season, because apparently there's got to be a second season. But I prefer to take these on multiple episodes at a time, just because I feel like this is enough to do kind of more a full review, I guess, and not just me talking for like a minute and then that's it, which probably would get more clicks, I think. I don't think a lot of people like to watch 20, 30-minute videos, which is why I don't do well. And my videos are also not that great. But aside from all that, but yeah, so I just decided today, like, why not talk about all of these first 5 episodes of What If and my opinions on it and stuff like that. So yeah, with that being said, this is a spoiler warning. If you have not seen What If, I'm going to be talking about all the episodes. I'm going to be talking about the spoilers, stuff that happens in it. So if you've not seen it yet, go watch it. It's definitely worth the time. You know, it's very clearly well handled, well done, and done in a way that makes it fun to watch, makes it enjoyable to sit down and see, what are these other possible timelines that have been created now that the multiverse is a thing? So yeah, with that being said, let's jump right in. Episode 1, What If Peggy Carter's the one who got the super soldier serum? I don't think that's the actual title, but that's the basis of the episode. And yeah, I mean, it starts off very fun, just a fun concept, seeing Peggy Carter, who we already know is a badass. She's the one that gets a super soldier serum instead of Steve, and then she's just going through. She becomes huge badass, even steals the Tesseract from the Hydra agents, which then Howard Stark uses to create a kind of a primordial. That's not the right word. Primordial? I don't know. I'm not good with science terms. But basically like a primitive version of the Iron Man suit powered by the Tesseract that now Steve gets to go around flying in. That concept is just so much fun. And it's done very well. It's fun, it's exciting. The animation lends itself to doing a lot of very fun moves and stuff with Peggy as Captain Carter. And yeah, I mean, all in all, it was a fun episode. A good way to get started as well. The story itself, pretty simple. Basically kind of going through the same plot of the first movie, but with little changes because Peggy getting the super soldier serum, she was already very good at fighting. Whereas Steve, he didn't really have. He wasn't a fighter. He did like to fight. He did push himself, but I mean, body type, he wasn't really built to fight. So whenever he did have the body finally to fight, it took him a little bit to kind of get accustomed to these new abilities. Whereas Peggy, she already knew how to fight. She already did have a little bit of combat training. So her getting super soldier serum means she turns into even better fighter than Steve was originally. And so that kind of helps her do, I think, a bit more than Steve did when he was first Captain America. Like I said, she gets the Tesseract back for the Allies. So it was a fun little journey down that to see, and then it takes a turn because now that the Tesseract's been stolen, now Red Skull has to basically find a different plan, find a different way to take over the world. And so seeing him basically finding this huge creature, which I can't remember the name of it now. I looked it up at some point. It's some weird name like Shumgorath or something like that. Don't know anything about it. I know it's a Marvel creature that's appeared before. It's the champion of Hydra in this episode, and that's kind of the final battle is against this thing, which, of course, role reversal. Now Peggy sacrifices herself by going to the other side and defeating this creature, and then gets brought back from there, however long in the future, like, I think it was 70 years, something like that. Which does kind of beg the question, how does that happen? Because the Tesseract has the Space Stone, so it lets you teleport across space, but how come that affects the time as well? Because it feels like once she was transported through the portal, time didn't stop there. We see that she clearly, I think she defeated the monster actually. So when she comes back through, like, how come she's not aged at all? So I guess maybe time worked differently in whatever world that creature's from. I don't know. But yeah, it was still very fun. Like I said, the animation really brought to life a lot of these battle scenes. The only complaint I have about it is it should have been a bit longer. And where that really shows is the dialogue. Because so much of it is just, it feels so quick. It feels so much like we're just rushing through these lines because we need to get to the next scene, because we got to get to this next thing, we got to get to this next fight. And I wanted it to take a little bit more time to sort of rest and let the emotion build a little bit, because a lot of the emotion in it was very apparent. But then it just sort of was like, all right, done with that. Let's move on to the next scene because we got to keep the story going. And I think a lot of it is just, it was a big plot for a small episode. So they didn't really have time to let that emotion play out as much as it could have. So I don't think that's really a writer thing. I think it's just a timing thing. I feel like they knew that they couldn't really get a whole lot into this time, so they tried as much as they could, and I just don't think timing-wise a lot of it worked out. So, but anyways, like I said, good kickoff. Second episode, even better. We get to see T'Challa as Star-Lord, which, one of Chadwick Boseman's last performances as Black Panther, because he actually does have, I don't know how many more times he's going to voice Black Panther, but this was kind of the main focus for T'Challa. And yeah, I mean, very fun concept. What if Yondu sent his guys instead and picked up the wrong kid to become Star-Lord? And yeah, I mean, it was a fun episode, getting to see that he convinced Thanos to join his team, and some of the different moments, like that opening scene of Guardians of the Galaxy where I don't remember the bad guy's name, but the one guy that worked for Ronan, coming in and seeing the difference where with Peter, I'm Star-Lord. Who? This one, oh, it's Star-Lord. How do you not know Star-Lord? Just really, really funny comparison. But just seeing everything that T'Challa did as Star-Lord, it makes sense. If he was given all of these abilities and all of these resources to do more than just something on Earth, and really expand his horizon, it makes sense that he would take that and basically become kind of a Robin Hood, because that's who he is deep down. Whereas Peter, he's more of just kind of a rogue, and he just wants to do his own thing. And yeah, I like the concept. And then seeing how the Collector became much more of a threat in this one, since Thanos was sort of taken out of his big bad role. I don't know. I really enjoyed the little flips that they did here and there. I think just hearing Thanos, the fact that they got so many of these characters to come back and do the voices, or actors to come back and do the voices for this show, really helps the show along. Because if they got some Josh Brolin sound-alike, it would be funny still. It would be funny to see Thanos all nice and stuff. But the fact that it actually is Josh Brolin, and he, it's not just a sound-alike, it actually is him. It's his voice. It's Thanos' voice saying these lines. I really feel like lends to the comedy, lends to the drama in it. I really like the fact that they did that, because it makes these little moments much more impactful for those of us that have been watching these throughout the whole thing. But yeah, so just this whole episode, it was another fun little romp, getting to see what if T'Challa did have all of these resources and what he would do with it that Peter didn't. And, while there is some good stuff, you also look at what the Collector did and how much power the Collector had, and there's some downsides to it as well. And that's kind of where things start to get a little darker in the next episode, because it's no longer about, oh, what if we just took one Marvel character and put him in the shoes of a different one. It starts to become much more dark and much more, what if people die? Because there were obviously deaths in the first two. Not saying there weren't, but it was not as hard hitting. Like in the first one, Peggy sacrifices herself, and it's the similar scenario that Steve did. So it's not as like, oh, like gut wrenching. Second one, like we see the collector's collected a lot of different like items, and he even has Korg's arm, and so there are some dark elements to it, but overall it's still kind of lighthearted. It's still fun to see, all of the fun adventures that T'Challa's going on. And then we get to the third episode, and it's what if the Avengers had died? What if Earth lost its mightiest heroes was the title. And they die. And I was wondering, I'm just like, okay, so what, are they just gonna, is it gonna be something like after the Battle of New York, like something just blows up and that's kind of it, and that's where no, we see them die. Like, we see Tony collapse on the floor and die. We see Hawkeye lose his arrow and Thor hit in the chest and he dies. We see Barton die. We see Hulk blow up. I'm just like, this was just a fun little show. What is this? This is actually kind of like, holy shit, what am I watching? So this is where this whole series started to turn a little bit. And yeah, I mean, it was still very good concept. We get kind of an interesting moment where we finally get to see the Incredible Hulk incorporated into the MCU more than just, oh, Thunderbolt Ross is in this. No, we see now a scene from the Incredible Hulk in this What If show, but now we've got Black Widow involved. So a little bit more tied in. We get to see Mark Ruffalo. He was voicing Banner in this one. I was curious to see, like, so they have Black Widow. Is it going to be ScarJo? And it was not. And kind of not surprised about that. I don't know how they're going to handle that going forward because, I mean, Black Widow was such a big part of the MCU for so long, and everything that's going on with Scarlett Johansson right now, it's like, you can't really just get rid of her, but also a lot of legal stuff. So that'll be interesting. But anyways, but getting to see that scene, I was like, okay, so that's cool how they're now tying it in. And it was just, I did kind of wonder, what's changed? And that was really the fun part of this episode, was the mystery of it. Like, we knew somebody was behind it. We knew somebody was doing this. Somebody was killing all of these people. And so I'm thinking, like, what has changed to cause this, though? Because everything is still playing out, for the most part, exactly the same. So why is it now that suddenly they're dying instead? What is going on that's changed this? And so then when you get to that moment where Black Widow's on the computer and she's looking up somebody, and then we hear it's all about Hope, and then suddenly we get to the grave and we see Hope Van Dyne dead, her gravestone. That's where it was kind of like a fun little oh moment for the audience to experience, because it was set up very much like a mystery, like it's a whodunit, who killed all these people, and so finding out his why, finding out why Hank Pym turned into this murderer. It is kind of interesting to think that all it took was his daughter dying, and that pushed him over the edge. That turned him into a psychotic killer. I don't know. I find that a little interesting about Hank. Because we could see Hank had his cynical side in the Ant-Man movies, but he never seemed like a bad guy. He never seemed like he was really... he was gone. But this showed him as he's always got that side to him. He's got that part that it could lead to something like this. So yeah, I found that very interesting, and I like the fact that we got to see kind of how he managed to do all of that, how he managed to kill all the Avengers like that. And yeah, I mean, it was pretty effective, and I like the episode overall. And then of course it ends on still a bit of a happy note, because we see Nick Fury, he finds Captain America, Captain Marvel comes back, and he's like, we still have hope. These people, they represent more than just themselves. They represent the idea of the Avengers. So it still had a bit of a happy note at the end. It wasn't all just like, And then episode 4. And this is the one that really made me realize, wow, this show is dark. And this is the one I'm probably going to talk about the most, because the setup for it is brilliant. Because it's not just, I think the episode title is, what if Doctor Strange lost his heart instead of his hands? What I like about it, though, it's not just, what if, somebody else died close to him, and instead of him getting his hands crushed, what if the reason he went to become Doctor Strange was because of Christine? What I like about it, though, is it shows kind of the interesting dichotomy of, in our universe that we're currently in, the MCU universe that we're watching, this Doctor Strange was very self-absorbed. And honestly, kind of a bad guy at the beginning of the movie. And then after, the hand thing, and then he finds out about the wizards, and he finds out about, this magic, that's what leads him down this path. Well, what's interesting is we see in this one, he's not himself as words are hard. He's not as self-absorbed. He's much more. He's going on a date with Christine. And correct me if I'm wrong. I think that was the same Christine, Rachel McAdams' character. I don't know if Rachel McAdams actually voiced her as well, but he's on a date. He's not driving up to this convention or speaking thing. He's not driving alone. He's driving with her. He's bringing her with him. They're involved. They're together. He's loving her. So he's a good guy in this one. And that actually makes it worse. Because the fact that losing her is his reason for becoming Doctor Strange leads to this moment where he tries to reverse an irreversible moment in time. Whereas in our current MCU, him losing his hands, like, he's not going to go back and be like, well, if I just fix this moment where I don't, use the time stone to not lose my hands, it makes much more sense for him to go back to try to save somebody he loved rather than going back to try to fix his hands. And I like that kind of comparison. Because I remember, we're watching and my girlfriend's like, but wait, why didn't he go back to fix his hands in the original? And it's like, well, because it's just his hands. He can still do the magic even with his messed up hands. He can still do all of this stuff with that. But this is different. If you had the ability to go back and save somebody, wouldn't you? Most of us would. And so I feel like that is what leads him down this dark path. And then that final climactic battle where we get to see, how the Ancient One kind of separated him, gave him these two different, I guess, life tracks, where in the one he didn't go back in time to save her, the other one he tried to and then found out how he could. And then just finding out all of this stuff, he takes on all of these creatures, which very well done animation-wise. Seeing him take on these creatures is more than just, oh, he's got their abilities. No, we see he becomes them. And there's a lot of evil creatures he's taken on. So the fact that he's taking on all of this evil turns him into these creatures, turns him into something darker. And then ultimately at the end, he's got to face off against his other self to get his full power to be able to do it. And as the battle's going on, I'm thinking, okay, this is going to be interesting because this version of himself that didn't go back in time is going to be much weaker than this version of himself that did. So will he be able to stop himself? Like, will he be able to do that? I don't know. And ultimately, he doesn't. And it's a very interesting moment because this is something they can do with a show like this. In a show where the consequences don't affect the MCU. The consequences don't... This reality is not going to affect the current Doctor Strange, that we see live action. So they can do something like this where it's not a happy ending. It's a bad ending. The whole world collapses on itself. It's dark, but it's kind of amazing because it's so emotional and it's so real too. He tried to do this all for the woman he loved, and then in the end she didn't recognize him, and he loses her anyway because that reality can't sustain itself. And I'm just like, man, what? It was just such a hard-hitting ending. Because it's an ending that really kind of, at the end of it, you're just sitting there going, holy shit. Like, I mean, I can't really blame him for what he did because it's relatable. It's understandable to want to bring back somebody you love that you've lost. But look at what it cost him. It cost him everything. It cost the world everything. And what I also really like about this is that one scene between him and the Watcher. Because he sees the Watcher, he can sense it because of how powerful he's become. And so that one moment where he's like, please help me. But of course the Watcher can't interfere. And I will be curious to find out why that is. Like, is there something in his powers that if he does interfere, it'll affect the universe or something? Is it something that it's just his own personal, like, how he feels, and so he's chosen not to interfere, but he could if he really wanted to. I don't know. I don't really know much about the Watcher from the comics, so I don't know what the lore behind that is. But that scene was just really interesting to see. For the first time, he's not just guiding us through. This is a moment where he actually steps in because he's being asked for help. He's being brought into the situation. He's like, I can't because I'm not allowed to. So that it was just very interesting scene. And of course, some people have said, well, I mean, he's interfering by talking to him. Semantics, Oh, well, yeah, I mean, if you go back in time and if you move a rock, I mean, that rock could change the course of history. Yes, of course. But talking to somebody as the world's about to end, it's like in Loki. Whenever somebody goes into the timeline at a place where the world's about to end or that, volcano's about to erupt, you can do whatever you want there. It's not going to change the outcome. I kind of feel like that's the same thing here. Him coming and talking to Strange after Strange asked him for help is not really influencing anything. The outcome is still the same. So I feel like people got way too up in arms about that. But in my opinion, this episode is the best one just because of how emotional it was and how realistic it was. And the fact that, I mean, they didn't cop out in the end. They didn't say, oh, look, Strange beat his evil self and saved the day. No, we get to see there are going to be some timelines where things don't always work out. And that, of course, leads us to the 5th episode, which got darker. So, like, oh, look, Strange lost the love of his life, and the one before that, the Avengers died. What if just everyone died? So what if zombies? And a little goofy title, in my opinion. The title is about the only part that I didn't like about it. But I mean, interesting setup. I was kind of wondering, like, how are they going to incorporate zombies into this? So finding out that it was actually kind of a mental thing that was brought back from the quantum realm, I'm like, okay, so just like basically everything else, magic, fantasy, now zombies, all of it can be explained by quantum physics, quantum mechanics, quantum. That's all you need to know. We've got zombies now. It's because of a quantum memory or mind disease that affects everyone who gets infected. Boom. But yeah, I mean, very good setup. We get to see kind of the opening of Infinity War. We see that apparently we see Iron Man, we see Strange, we see Wong. All of them have been affected. Great setup for that. We see, obviously, Hulk doesn't know all of this stuff going on because he's been off-world. And so I like the setup for it. I like seeing how they had this idea set up to go through. And kind of the team up as well, because there's a bunch of characters that we don't really see together, very often. Like, you've got Okoye, you've got Bucky, you've got Spider-Man, you've got Sharon, you've got Hope, you've got Kurt, just randomly thrown in there. So I liked the team up. I liked all the different characters together. Each one of them had a connection to somebody else, I think, because like Bucky and Sharon. Okoye, not really. She knows Bucky, of course, because he was in Wakanda for a while. But then, of course, later they find out T'Challa's still alive. But that, just the build up to the moment where they find Vision and seeing kind of that the Mind Stone, because it's a mind disease, the Mind Stone is the one thing kind of keeping them away. Vision is keeping them away. And then, of course, you find out that apparently Wanda was infected, and that's the secret that Vision's been hiding, is he wants to keep her alive, so he's been feeding people to her. And, yeah, it was kind of weird. Like, I get logically he thinks that he can keep her alive until he can finally find the solution for how to save her, like he did Scott. But also, logically thinking it doesn't make sense, because if you can't fix her in the way you fix Scott, then I feel like that's kind of the only way to do it. And if she's immune to that fix, then maybe you should just not keep trying. I don't know. It just, this one part of it, like it was kind of a shocking moment, but it was also kind of like, okay, that's weird. Because then also what it leads to is he suddenly changes his mind and he's like, all right, here you go, take the Mind Stone. I'm sorry for everything I've done. Let me repent. I'm just kind of like, okay, well, that was quick. That was the only part of this episode I feel like that just didn't quite work for me, but it was still good because seeing Wanda as a zombie was intimidating and scary as hell. So that was kind of the point. But also, I like the fact that they didn't hold back. because I was worried they were going to. I was really worried that we were going to see like, oh, kind of a campy zombie horror thing. You can't show too much. No, they did. There was decapitations. Okoye cut Falcon in half as a zombie. We see a moment where Sharon, like, Hope literally dove into her mouth and exploded her from within. We saw Cap get sliced in half as a zombie. There was a lot in this. There was a lot that I did not really expect from this show because, I don't know, whenever I think this is a problem that we still have. Whenever you see animated show, you don't instantly think like adult. You don't think, oh, this is gonna, especially Marvel, because think about just the MCU. We haven't had anything that's like super bloody, super gory, so having that in animated form was not something I was expecting, but then we did, and it's not just random zombies, it's characters we know. Seeing Falcon sliced in half is still, oh my god. And they just sort of brush it off because that's what life is now. And I'm just kind of like, okay, like, kudos to Marvel for actually having the guts to go this far and go this dark with this concept. Because it could have just been a campy thing where it's just like, funny, zombies. Ooh, what if the Avengers were zombies? Oh, funny, crazy. But no, they really let the emotion play out. Hope sacrifices herself, and it's emotional for everyone. We see what Vision's gone through to keep Wanda alive. We see Hulk sacrifice himself to help everybody get away with the cure. I'm just kind of like, okay, this show is not just a fun little ride. It's not just a fun little romp. This is actually meant to be taken seriously. And that's not what I was thinking when I started it. So it's interesting. It's got my attention. It's something that I am excited to see where it goes from here. I don't know if I'm going to be doing 5 episodes like this every time. Again, I'm actually going to look it up real quick because why not, just to be sure. But I'm pretty sure we're like halfway through this. Pretty sure. I'm about to be proven wrong. Of course, my internet's slow, so it's also not going to load for me, which is fine. But yeah, it's got a good setup. There's going to be, I feel like, a lot more to talk about as this show goes on, because right now, I feel like the first couple episodes were very kind of quick little one-offs, because again, pretty simple concept. You just take 2 characters and you put one character in the other character's shoes and say, all right, what would happen if this happened instead? And it's fun little concept. My phone's finally loading, so I'm going to check again. Okay, episode 9 is the last episode, so we are halfway through. I was right. God, my internet sucks. Anyways, but yeah, so it's gonna be fun to see what it does from here. How much more dark can you get? Are they gonna keep going darker, or eventually we just gonna see, okay, things have changed. Now things are a bit happier, things are a bit lighter. I don't know, and it's got my interest, it's got my attention. I'm excited, so we'll see what happens. But anyways, with all that being said, that's it for these first 5 episodes. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below. We can talk about, discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe. Future what if reviews, and I'll see you guys at the final 4 episodes, I guess, whenever they're finally done. Peace out.